Today we're going to be discussing the greatest NFL player from each and every NFL team of all time. Now guys, this list took a very long time to put together, so if you could take a moment to leave a like, you don't even have to subscribe and turn my notifications on, but just leave a like, and at the end of the video, if you think I'm an awesome guy and an awesome content creator, you could subscribe and turn on my noties as well. That would really appreciate it, man. We're on the grind to 100,000 subscribers here. Also, I live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time. You can find a link to that in the description down below. But finally, your boy just launched a soccer channel. It's called Flight FC. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description down below. We do the same type of content, only for soccer. And the main goal of it is to educate Americans and the entire world about the beautiful game. So it's called Flight FC. It's only at like 3,000 subscribers, guys. So if you happen to be even slightly interested in upping your soccer knowledge, be sure to check it out. And I think that's about it. Break! For the Arizona Cardinals, we have Larry Fitzgerald, and come on, man, I understand there's Dick Night Train Lane up in there, there's Larry Wilson and Aeneas Williams as well, but no one's been more consistent and more incredible than Larry Fitzgerald. He could have left the Arizona Cardinals many times to chase a ring, and he's been there for good times, which is their Super Bowl appearance, and bad. He's going into his 17th year, and honestly, he doesn't seem to be slowing down as much as you'd think he would. He fits into Cliff Kingsbury's air raid seamlessly, and I can't wait to see what he's gonna do next despite being so old. For the Atlanta Falcons, we have Julio Jones. Julio Jones, from the moment he stepped into the NFL, has been a consistent matchup nightmare, and he's been a consistently dominant receiver throughout his entire career, and he shows no signs of slowing down. Even as the Atlanta Falcons begin to falter throughout their recent seasons, Julio Jones has still remained dominant as ever and as consistent as ever. And that's all you can really ask for from a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. Even as I'm making this video, Julio Jones is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section who is. For the Baltimore Ravens, we have Ray Lewis, and who else but Ray Lewis, man? This is probably one of the easiest choices here. Probably the greatest inside linebacker of the 2000s, Ray Lewis had a phenomenal 17-season career, leading the Baltimore Ravens to a Super Bowl championship in the year 2000, and then ending his career by winning another Super Bowl for his Baltimore Ravens. Man, talk about a great way to ride off into the sunset. For the Buffalo Bills, we have Bruce Smith, and if you guys don't remember, man, Bruce Smith not only had an extremely long 18-year NFL career, but he sacked the quarterback 200 times throughout his career. He was the 1985 #1 overall pick, and he just seemed to be able to do absolutely everything. He was able to earn 8 first-team All-Pros and was able to anchor those iconic Buffalo defenses throughout his entire career. Ultimately, Bruce Smith had a phenomenal career, even when he was a journeyman throughout the latter part of his career. For the Carolina Panthers, we have to put in Cam Newton over here, man. And it's because I've never seen a player completely carry a team 100% by himself offensively to a Super Bowl. Now, don't get me wrong, those Carolina Panther defenses were absolutely dominant, but on the offensive side of the ball, it was literally all Cam. It was all Superman. This 6'5" mountain of a quarterback was impossible to bring down, and he holds many Carolina Panthers records. Now, I know he's dealing with some injury issues right now, and I hope he gets better soon, but you have to give credit where credit's due. Of course, we could also make an argument for Jake Delhomme and for Steve Smith and even for Luke Kuechly, but ultimately, man, Cam Newton deserves this spot. For the Chicago Bears, man, this one was tough, but it's obviously Jay Cutler, and here is why. No, I'm just kidding. For the Chicago Bears, I had to pick Walter Payton. I really hope you didn't click off of the video when I said Jay Cutler. It's really hard to pick a player for the Chicago Bears because this is a franchise that's won 11 NFL championships, and Walter Payton was only there for one, but he was the go-to offensive weapon for that Chicago Bears team. He's a relentless runner, and he is one of the greatest running backs of all time, and on top of that, my man has an award named after him for being a good human being and for sportsmanship. Doesn't get much better than that. For For the Cincinnati Bengals, we have Anthony Munoz, and this is one of the most dominant offensive tackles of all time. He was a first-team All-Pro 9 times throughout his career, and the only person that has more All-Pro awards than Anthony Munoz is none other than the GOAT himself, Jerry Rice. Anthony Munoz is one of those rare instances of what happens when a player with a phenomenal body, great athleticism, meets a player that is technically sound. He played in the NFL for 13 years, but he has the argument to be the greatest left tackle of all time. For the Cleveland Browns, we have Jim Brown. And Jim Brown was by far the greatest running back we've ever seen. The only issue with Brown is longevity. He only played until his age 29 season, but that's all he needed to win 8 rushing titles. He was the complete package for his era, and his model got replicated through future generations. Many running backs have said that Jim Brown is the running style they try to emulate. Now, for the Dallas Cowboys, man, this one was absolutely difficult. And the best person that I could say, and I know this is going to be controversial, would have to be Bob Lilly. What? What do you mean, Mike? Not Roger Staubach? Not Emmitt Smith? Not Troy Aikman? Not Larry Allen? Nope, Bob Lilly. And that's because he was the key member of the Dallas Doomsday Defense. He was there for 14 seasons and never missed a game, and he was able to carry the Cowboys from an expansion team to an NFC dominant force. And here's the thing, he performed by far the first memorable play in Dallas Cowboys history by sacking Bob Greasy for 29 yards in the Cowboys' first Super Bowl win. Look, if you are contributing to an iconic franchise's first Super Bowl, then we have to tip our hat off to you. But I know this could be controversial, so let me know who you'd put instead of Bob Lilly. I thought it was pretty cool to name someone that's typically underrated. I tend to favor players that are very underrated. Speaking of underrated, for the Denver Broncos, we have John Elway, who is possibly the most naturally gifted quarterback of all time. He was able to take Broncos teams that, they weren't really horrible, but they weren't absolutely dominant, and he was able to win them a couple of Super Bowls, especially towards the end of his career. He remained one of the best quarterbacks in his league until his retirement, and he was able to take the Broncos to 3 Super Bowls in the late 80s. He made the Broncos perennial contenders after they'd spent 20 plus years of their entire existence as one of the AFC's worst teams. For the Detroit Lions, this one was between Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. I have to go with Barry Sanders, man, because there's nobody more electric to watch than Barry Sanders. He was able to cut back and jumpstart so easily, it was like watching poetry in motion. He was able to carry the Lions for 10 years, and he didn't really have anybody around him to help him out. He is definitely one of the greatest wastes of talent in NFL history, but he's still incredibly talented at that. For the Green Bay Packers, we have to put in, and again, could be very controversial, Bart Starr. He teamed up with Vince Lombardi to form the first dominant quarterback head coach tandem. He won 2 Super Bowl championships. He was Super Bowl MVP in both of those championships. He was a 5-time NFL champion before that, and he was also a 4-time Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro. You could also make an argument for Brett Favre or Don Hudson, but come on, man. He was the first dominant quarterback in Green Bay Packers history. We got to give him the respect that he's due. For the Houston Texans, we have J.J. Watt. And again, you have to understand, the Texans have only been in existence for about 18 years at the time of this video. The thing about J.J. Watt is you can make an argument for him being the most consistent and by far the most dominant defender and pass rusher in the past decade. Now look, it might take him a couple more years before he gets grouped with the rest of the all-time greats, but J.J. Watt has been able to dominate in by far the most difficult era in NFL history to dominate. Players are way more advanced and athletically gifted now. For the Indianapolis Colts, we have Peyton Manning, and I know that Peyton Manning didn't spend his entire career with the Colts, and I understand the Colts also have Johnny Unitas, they have Andrew Luck, but Peyton Manning was able to win a Super Bowl, and he was one of the most gifted quarterbacks we've ever seen. I don't know many QBs that have the brain and the work ethic, yet the same arm as Peyton does. And even after the Colts fell off of a cliff, he proved his dominance by going to the Denver Broncos and appearing in 2 more Super Bowls while riding off into the sunset with 1 more Super Bowl. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, we have Tony Boselli, and I know Tony Boselli's career ended early because of a shoulder injury, but he was still a great left tackle for Jacksonville in the 6 seasons that he played for them. He won 3 first-team All-Pros. He was a standout blocker in an elite era for left tackles. Tony Boselli has a Terrell Davis-esque type of career and the same type of argument for the Hall of Fame. All right, man, ready for another controversial pick? For the Kansas City Chiefs, I have none other than Patrick Mahomes. And here is why. I understand it's only been a few seasons into his career. I understand many old heads are probably clicking off of this video as I'm giving my justification. I understand you could say Priest Holmes, Derrick Thomas, or Tony Gonzalez over here, but here's the thing. Patrick Mahomes has won a championship in his 2nd season as a full-time starter. He's won an MVP in his 1st season as a full-time starter. We have never seen a talent like this before. We have never seen a player like this before that has come into the NFL and has dominated right away like he's playing career mode on rookie in Madden 2020. So, yeah. For the Chargers, I would like to go with LaDainian Tomlinson, a player that dominated the 2000s with his running style and his versatility. LaDainian Tomlinson won 5 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, 3 second-team All-Pros, an MVP, an Offensive Player of the Year, and Walter Payton Man of the Year. And those last 3 were all in the same season, the 2006 NFL season. He is part of the NFL's 2000s All-Decade team and holds NFL records for the most rushing touchdowns in a season, the most touchdowns from scrimmage in a season, and the most consecutive games with a touchdown. He's averaged 4.3 yards per carry, was able to rush for 145 touchdowns throughout his career, and rushed for over 13,000 yards. For the LA Rams, we have Deacon Jones, and I know what you guys are thinking, what about the greatest show on turf? Well, here's the thing, man. Deacon Jones unofficially has 173.5 sacks. He is known for one of the craziest signature moves in NFL history, the head slap. So I guess you can make an argument about whether or not he'd be successful in today's league, but that doesn't matter. The Rams began their rise as Deacon Jones was able to make 6 straight All-Pro first teams in 1965. But if you disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. For the Miami Dolphins, we have Dan Marino, and look, I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but this guy in one season, in the 1984 season, threw for 5,084 yards and 48 touchdown passes, and this was able to break George Blanda's record by 12. This is still the standard for his position, and the Dolphins icon continued to be the most prolific passer way into the 1990s, so he definitely deserves to be on this list. For the Minnesota Vikings, I have Adrian Peterson. Whenever you have one of the best running backs in NFL history, I just have to include him here. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I grew up with him, but at the end of the day, man, Adrian Peterson was an absolute joy to watch, and his comeback from a torn ACL only to completely dominate the NFL and post one of the greatest rushing seasons in NFL history to this day is by far one of the most inspirational comebacks I've ever seen. All right, for the New England Patriots, we have Tom Brady, and I don't think I need to go into this that much. Like, considering the amount of Super Bowls he's won, the amount of records he's broken, I know he's on the Buccaneers now. This video is getting very, very long. I don't want to go into something so clearly obvious, so we're going to say Tom Brady for the Patriots. For the New Orleans Saints, we have Drew Brees. And whenever you win a city its only Super Bowl, then of course you're going to have to be here. He is the career leader for completion percentage for the New Orleans Saints, and he's one of the most accurate QBs in NFL history. For the New York Giants, we have Lawrence Taylor, by far, in my opinion, the greatest defensive player in the entire NFL of all time. A player that literally ended careers that terrified opposing offenses. Quarterbacks would literally shiver in fear whenever they'd have to face this guy because they knew this could be their last game. For the New York Jets, we have Joe Namath. And look, I know this is going to be a little tacky, but whenever you had this much to do with the inception of the current NFL and you played in the first Super Bowl and you were that iconic, of course we're going to have to go with Broadway Joe. For the Oakland Raiders, we have Gene Upshaw. I know some people may not like the fact that linemen are coming up in here, but this guy's won 9 Pro Bowls from 1968 to 1977 and is the only player to suit up for Super Bowls in 3 different decades. During that 10-year span, the Raiders did not finish outside the top 10 in rushing. A lot of that had to do with Gene Upshaw. For the Philadelphia Eagles, we have Reggie White, one of the most transcendent defensive pass rushers of all time. One could only wonder how great that team could have been if his running mate didn't end up dying. Now, I don't want to get into the death of his teammate. I made a video on that a month ago. It's 6 players who died in the middle of the prime of their career if you want to check it out. But without a doubt, Reggie White has been the most consistent and one of the best defensive pass rushers of all time. He's a top 10 all-time NFL player and did his best work in Philadelphia, although he was able to make it to other teams in the latter part of his career. To give you an idea of how good Reggie White was, there was one season where the NFL was shortened due to a strike in 1987 and they only played 12 games. Reggie White recorded 21 sacks that season. Yeah. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, we have Mean Joe Green, the anchor of the Steel Curtain, a player that was able to help the 1976 Steelers pitch 5 shutouts and only allowed 22 total points in their final 8 regular season games. A gap-shooting defensive tackle, a 10-time Pro Bowler, and a player that was able to anchor 4 Super Bowl championship defenses. I rest my case. For the San Francisco 49ers, we have Jerry Rice. This is simple, man. One of the greatest wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver of all time. A 20-year veteran who literally, as he kept going forward, people thought, okay, he's past his prime. He's not going to be good anymore. And he just kept doing it. 10 seasons with over 1,200 yards in an 11-season span. In the one year that Jerry Rice wasn't able to post 1,200 yards, he shattered the NFL single-season TD record, which is 22 in 1987, a 12-game season. He was a 10-time first team All-Pro. He is one of the best players, if not the GOAT. And in my opinion, he's my GOAT. For the Seattle Seahawks, I have Earl Thomas, a player that is very, very, very important in Seahawks history, as he was able to help their identity and to form the Legion of Boom, which resulted in 2 Super Bowl appearances and them winning a Super Bowl. I think by the end of all of this, we're going to say Russell Wilson, and I know you can make an argument for Steve Largent, a player that had 100 touchdowns throughout his career, but come on, man, the LOB was able to bring many years of success to the Seattle Seahawks and completely changed the way NFL defenses have been ran. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have Derrick Brooks, who is the anchor of that 2002 defense where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won a Super Bowl. He had one of the greatest seasons in NFL history that year. His craziest performance came in the Super Bowl up against the Oakland Raiders. He was able to win 11 Pro Bowls and was the focal point of the Tampa 2 defense. Now, you can make an argument for Warren Sapp and John Lynch, but come on, man. Derrick Brooks was by far the most dominant player on that team. For the Tennessee Titans, we're going to include Bruce Matthews, aka Clay Matthews' dad. He is a 19-year-old veteran, and he played more games than any offensive lineman ever. But not only that, he was able to play 3 different positions up front. He was a tackle in 1984, and then he was a center and a guard during his time in Houston/Tennessee. He was first team All-Pro at both inside positions, and at 39, Matthews became the oldest non-quarterback to earn a first team All-Pro award. And finally, for the Washington Redskins, we have Sammy Baugh, a player that was able to have 50 more touchdown passes than anyone else at the time he retired. Now, you have to understand that football was way different when Sammy Baugh was playing. And obviously quarterbacks are expected to do differently nowadays, but he was the 6th overall pick, and he was able to help the Washington Redskins win the 1937 NFL championship. He helped the Washington Redskins win 4 more championship games and nearly was able to pass for 3,000 yards in 1947. Now, at the same time, he was a punter as well. Again, football was way, way different back then, but I have to include Sammy Baugh on this list because, come on, no one's done more for the Washington Redskins than him.